There are many misconceptions within Hollywood and certain other areas of entertainment that are still told today, even though it's not always true. But the fact is that many of these things were true at one point in time, because that's just what things were like back then. Yes, we know it's never cool to hear such a thing, as it often leads to bad things being revealed, but it's something that happened. For example, in the golden age of Hollywood, there was all manner of criminal activity amongst the higher-ups in studios, as well as the actors that played the various roles they were cast in. For many women, they felt that the only way to work your way up in Hollywood was to literally sleep with anyone who might be able to help them gain more fame. And in this video, we'll show you some examples of that. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. 7. Jayne Mansfield. While many of these names might not be familiar to those who live in our current day and age, if you were within a certain generation, it was hard not to know about names like Jayne Mansfield. After all, she wasn't just a famous actress who tore up the screen with her beauty and talent, but she also was known for her incredible singing prowess. In fact, back then, many classic stars had multiple jobs, occupations in Hollywood, so that they could make their impact even grander. For Mansfield, she let her singing ability take her to heights in the nightclub scene, which was absolutely booming back then. Oh, and she also was a Playboy playmate. And we're going to guess that her starring issue got a lot of sales, just saying. And it wasn't just magazine readers who was oogling her. While she was married a few times, they always ended up in divorce. Then she was always pictured being around men of the rich and famous variety, and it was stated that she likely had slept with 25 men over the course of her career. She was even accused of sleeping with Robert F. Kennedy, which is a family we'll definitely be touching upon a bit later in the video. What might surprise you the most is that despite all of the tabloid pieces about her, Mansfield didn't care. If anything, she welcomed it, as it helped keep her in the spotlight, and she was often about making her persona evolve over the years. When she won in life, and she won a lot, she celebrated big, and it didn't matter who her arm was wrapped around. She definitely had a good time. 6. Vivien Leigh. From the 1930s to the 1960s, Vivien Leigh was one of the biggest names that the big screen had ever put out. Sure, like our last entrant, she was incredibly beautiful, which was pretty much a requirement for main actresses of that period. But make no mistake, Leigh was breathtaking as an actor via her performances. Whether it was stage plays or big Hollywood productions, she made every role that was hers her own, and she won awards for her incredible portrayals of various characters. Not everyone in today's Hollywood can say that. The main problem in her life, though, was that she was in a marriage that wasn't supportive. Specifically, her husband at the time was very disapproving of her career. So, he was a jerk. That's when she met Laurence Olivier, who was another big-name actor, and the two hit it off, and then, hit it. In fact, they had one of the biggest scandals in Hollywood of that period, because they had a decade-long affair filled with all manner of ups and downs, all the while they were married to other people. Then, when they did get married, it ended spectacularly, and that basically set off a period of serious mental illness for Leigh, where she went around sleeping with all kinds of men, and apparently one woman. How progressive, for the time at least. It may seem shocking that someone so successful on screen would be so unsuccessful in something just as important off it, but that's just how life goes for some people sometimes. 5. Diana Dors. One of the terms that came from the golden age of Hollywood that we still use today is bombshell. This refers to a woman or women who are so beautiful that it almost defies belief. Diana Dors wasn't just one such blonde bombshell. She happily called herself that and used it to her advantage and detriment in Hollywood. Her career started on TV, and then she went to cabarets before eventually becoming one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood proper. Her beauty was so revered that it led to the other label put upon her, one that she actually didn't like, a sex symbol. It's not hard to see why people would think that about her, especially given her drop-dead gorgeous looks and the fact that she was associated with a myriad of men over the years. Not unlike others we've talked about, she was smart about trying to be with influential men, and that list kept going for a long time. While she's openly associated with the 3 men she married and the 12 men she allegedly had affairs with, other records indicate that the men in her life were far more numerous. We guess that being with this bombshell was a blast. 4. Clara Bow. Going now to the true silent film era, Clara Bow was one of the best and most beautiful to ever do it. She was so good at what she did that she kept her A-list status in Hollywood for decades, which in that period was not the easiest thing to do. One of the things that helped her wasn't just her great talent on screen, but her stunning looks. She might not have been a blonde bombshell like others we've discussed, but her looks got her plenty of attention from people all over the country. Don't believe us? Back then, fan mail was a way that people could go and connect with these stars. And Clara Bow was getting over 40,000 pieces of fan mail a year. And that was just from the people who couldn't interact with her on a daily basis. Now imagine all the men in Hollywood who wanted to be with her. Trust us, they were plentiful. The list of men she was rumored to have affairs with were long, including all-time great names like John Wayne, while she at least tried to keep some of this under wraps. Hollywood doesn't really work like that. 3. Elizabeth Taylor. We're going to talk about two all-time legendary women in these next two entries, so strap in. This is going to get wild. The first on our list is the one and only Elizabeth Taylor. She is a woman who is an icon of the screen, and even with her remarkable highs and lows in her life, she's still revered to this day. That's what you call staying power. Oh, but that staying power went beyond just recognition. It has to do with her career too. You might not have known this, but Elizabeth Taylor actually started her life as a child actor. From there, she built herself up to becoming the highest paid actor of the 1960s in certain respects, and some of her films stand out even to this day. And yes, she won numerous awards for her incredible acting abilities. However, off the screen was just as much a focus for people as it was for her roles on it. Her love life, or to be more accurate, love lives, were the constant focus of the media, not the least of which was because she had multiple marriages and such a long line of affairs that it'd be honestly difficult to keep track of them all, and we'd be here for quite a while longer if we tried. Even if you just focus on her marriages, she was married 8 times to 7 different guys. Yes, that means she married one of those men twice, and it failed twice. Then, if you jump to the list of affairs, they're a literal who's who of Hollywood elite during her period of fame. What made her infamous, though, was that she was the type to apparently be with someone and then move on rather quickly to the next one. And because she was Elizabeth Taylor, there was always someone waiting to potentially be with her. That was just the nature of Hollywood at that time. However, while she is the personification of loving and moving on, her fame in this category could easily be topped by 2. Marilyn Monroe. Yep, you had to know we'd be talking about Marilyn Monroe. After all, she's the person you picture when you think of Hollywood diva, and of course, blonde bombshell. What made her so famous and infamous was that she may have played a dumb blonde on screen at times, but she was incredibly clever. She was actually very specific about using her public image to her advantage, and even helped craft it when the situation allowed. That included doing nude shoots for Playboy magazine, which made her even more famous and infamous. Her career had many highs, including her fighting for her right to do more meaningful roles, and even getting a Golden Globe win for the film Some Like It Hot. And the irony of that is that many people found Marilyn Monroe hot, and that led to all sorts of scandals. Officially, she married to 3 men, but they never lasted more than a few years at best. Then, with her affairs, they had included men like Elia Kazan, Charlie Chaplin Jr., Milton Berle, Marlon Brando, Frank Sinatra, Jerry Lewis, and so many more. Oh, and remember the Kennedys? One of her most infamous news stories was that she apparently had an affair with then-President John F. Kennedy, who, if you didn't realize, was a married man who had a rather beautiful wife. And they had a kid, and yet he still slept with Marilyn. And his brother Robert might have slept with her, too. Go figure. 1. The casting couch. We're going to end this on a slightly different note. While these women all slept with numerous people, one could very easily make the argument that they had little choice in the matter if they wanted to stay on top in the industry. That's because of the infamous casting couch, where people in charge would basically demand that certain female talents sleep with them, or else they wouldn't get the roles. Sadly, this kind of practice happened for decades, including into the modern age of Hollywood. This was one of the factors behind the famous Me Too movement, where stars both male and female came forward to reveal what those behind the camera had done to try and assert their power at the cost of doing others harm. While Hollywood has gotten better about this and many aren't afraid to speak out anymore about such things overall, it's still sad that this happened to so many over so many decades. This kind of thing is not good, and it highlights the problems that were within, not just with Hollywood, but within any entity that has certain kinds of people in power. Hopefully, we can all get to a place in this world where someone can absolutely say no and not be punished for it. By now, you've probably noticed a pattern, one that's as disturbing as it is consistent. A pattern where fame, beauty, and talent weren't always enough to guarantee success on their own, where many women weren't just navigating the competitive nature of Hollywood, they were surviving it. And survival often came at a steep price. Because back in those days, and let's be honest, not that long ago either, the so-called glamour of Hollywood had a dark side. It was a place where power wasn't just influential, it was weaponized. Producers, directors, studio executives, these men controlled everything. The roles, the press, the contracts, the entire trajectory of a woman's career could hinge on whether she said yes to the right man behind the scenes. It wasn't always direct, and it wasn't always public, but it was always there, that unspoken rule, that looming threat. You could be the most talented woman on earth, but if you said no to the wrong person, suddenly your phone stopped ringing. You got passed up for roles. Your reputation took a mysterious hit. Difficult to work with, they'd whisper. Uncooperative. Many of the women we've talked about weren't just navigating fame. They were navigating landmines. The lines between personal choice and coerced compliance were blurred, sometimes deliberately so. People often say, well, they chose to sleep with so-and-so, but how much of a choice is it when your entire future depends on it? When you know that one mistake, one refusal, one moment of asserting your own boundaries could mean the end of everything you've worked for? And even if these women did use their sexuality as a tool, as a way to gain leverage, to control their image, to climb the ladder, let's not pretend that was some kind of empowering experience. In most cases, it wasn't about empowerment. It was about survival. It was about using the only form of influence available in a world designed to strip them of all other power. The media didn't help either. In fact, it made things worse. Women like Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, and Elizabeth Taylor weren't treated like people. They were treated like stories, like headlines, like scandals in high heels. And the more outrageous their personal lives seemed, the more the public consumed it. It became entertainment in and of itself. Not look at her achievements, but look at her lovers. Not what an incredible actress, but who is she sleeping with this week? And let's not forget the emotional toll that came with this level of scrutiny and exploitation. These weren't just women with busy dating lives. These were women who were often battling depression, anxiety, rejection, and loneliness. Being famous doesn't protect you from heartbreak. In many cases, it amplifies it. People were more interested in tearing these women down than understanding what they were going through behind closed doors. So while it's easy to look back and say, well, that's just how things were, or they chose that life, we have to ask a harder question. Why was that the life they had to choose from in the first place? Why was the system built in such a way that power always flowed one direction, away from women and toward the men who controlled everything? Why was it normalized for talent to be second to seduction, for opportunity to be conditional, for silence to be the price of survival? This wasn't just a few isolated incidents. This was an entire industry culture, an industry that encouraged women to sell themselves in ways that had nothing to do with their actual talent, an industry that profited off their beauty, their allure, and then discarded them the second they aged out, spoke up, or stopped playing the game. That's why these stories matter. That's why we keep telling them. Not to shame the women involved, far from it, but to remind everyone just how high the cost of fame can be when the system is rigged from the start. These women weren't just stars. They were survivors, fighters, trailblazers. They carved paths through impossible circumstances and did whatever they had to do to make their mark. And whether they were adored, misunderstood, vilified, or forgotten, they left behind legacies far more complex than any headline could ever capture. They were part of a Hollywood that chewed up and spat out even the brightest lights, and still, somehow, they shined. And that's all from the realm of old school Hollywood and how far some women went to try and make their name and get their fame. Does this sour your opinion on old Hollywood and many who participated in these practices willingly? Which of these actresses did you not expect to see on this list? Or do you know of another actor who could have been on here because of the acts that they did during their period of fame? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.